The U.S. labor market is facing a quality issue. A new Gallup report revealing that 60% of U.S. workers lack quality jobs. For a closer look, we welcome in now Molly Blankenship, Director at Jobs for the Future, which contributed as a research partner in this new Gallup report. Molly, it's great to see you. So let's talk about this new report, the first national survey designed to measure job quality. Let's start right there, Molly. How are we defining that term, job quality?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Josh, for having me, first of all. This work really started from a recognition, I think, like many of us know, that jobs and work is often about more than just a paycheck. So in this research, we look at not only whether workers are receiving fair pay and benefits, but also whether they have opportunities to advance and build skills on the job, whether they have a voice in key decisions that affect them, and whether their schedules and workloads are sustainable. All of the different aspects and elements of quality jobs that we know are a part of the work as workers ourselves.
All right, so now we have the definition. Let's get to the data. The report says, Molly, just 40% of U.S. workers are in quality jobs. Just 40%. That doesn't sound great. How do we explain that?
Well, I think part of the explanation is that we've not had data like we are releasing into the world today to help understand what's really going on under the hood in our economy. Every month we release and consume data about how many jobs are added and how much they pay. But the aspects that I mentioned a moment ago that we know really impact whether workers are thriving and whether businesses are thriving have often been missing from national data. And I think as a result, we have missed things as a result or been caught on our back feet when you think about things like the Great Resignation or quiet quitting. And so hopefully data like this, national data, can help us not only know what's happening, but get ahead of it and make smarter decisions and investments as a result.
When we talk about job quality, Molly, were there notable differences you found in terms of education, race, gender?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I think, in some ways, not surprising, quality jobs are not evenly distributed across the U.S. workforce. Who you are, where you come from, what educational pathway you've chosen all seem to have an impact. But one of the things that we found that's really interesting, too, if you look at the different aspects of job quality, is that some of them are really cross-cutting. For instance, I mentioned schedules a moment ago. Regardless of educational level, many workers are struggling with working more than they expect, having unpredictable and unstable schedules, that sort of thing. But I do think that there's a call from this data to really look at, where are our resources and focus going in the economy? And are workers, for instance, who are gaining skills outside of formal education, receiving the same sort of engagement, training on the job, and that sort of thing that will help us build the workforce from the ground up that we need to not only be competitive now, but competitive into the future.
One stat I thought that was interesting, Molly, in the report, non-W-2 workers, so independent contractors, for example, they actually reported slightly higher job quality. What do you make of that?
I think it is a fascinating finding. And I think it speaks to the diversity of the gig economy, as we call it, independent contractor roles, so on and so forth. So it's something that we're going to want to be digging into a lot more. I've mentioned scheduling a couple times. I think there's a question to be asked around, what impact does having autonomy and control over your schedule and that sort of thing have on how you feel about your job and thus how you show up to it. But again, there's a lot of diversity in that workforce, the non-W-2 workforce, and that's something that we'll be digging into as we go forward in this work.
I only have a minute left, Molly, but I'm curious, now that you have the report, you've got the data, bottom line, what are the actionable takeaways for CEOs, lawmakers, policymakers listening right now? How do we create more quality jobs?
Absolutely. I hope that this data, one big takeaway, like you said, Josh, is that the majority of American workers are not in quality jobs. And that matters, not only for workers and their families, but for the businesses who employ them, for the communities that they participate in. So quality needs to be a bigger part of the conversation in general. And then for employers and policymakers, I think that this data will start to expose where there are actionable steps that we can take, some of which are relatively low or no cost and can have a really sizable impact on workers' satisfaction and well-being and thus productivity on the job.
Molly, appreciate your time today. Thank you.